Here's Saints' Alvin Kamara on the incident that led to what ultimately was a 3-game suspension for him.
You know, I never want to be involved in something where someone gets hurt or severely injured or anything. Poor judgment on my end. Definitely a bad decision, but I'm a man. Everything I've ever done in my life, I've stood on, and I can take accountability for it, and I can say when I'm wrong. And I was completely wrong, embarrassed the Saints, embarrassed my family, my mother, embarrassed myself, embarrassed the city, and the Shield, obviously, embarrassed the NFL. So, you know, I just tried to do my best to kind of keep it as much away from the media and as much away from the team as I could. You know, obviously, it's hard to do that when, you know, you got such a incident like that. So, you know, I'll be lying if I said it wasn't tough. I've lost a lot throughout this ordeal. Definitely not looking for any pity, not looking for somebody to give me a pat on the back and say it's okay. I know what I know what I did. I know what I was involved in, and I definitely take responsibility. And you know, that's part of being a man and growing. You know, from here, I just got to make the right decisions and make the right choices. So that's kind of what I got to say about that.
Let me tell you what, every professional sports team in the world needs to take that clip and file it away for the inevitable reality that someone's going to get in trouble. You want to show somebody how to properly own it, to properly take accountability, to properly stand up and not make excuses and not try to divert attention, but to be an adult, to be an evolved human being and express remorse for what happened and accept full and complete accountability and responsibility. That was perfect from Alvin Kamara. I have newfound respect for him after hearing that.
Yeah, I mean, always knew he was a guy that gets it, right? You know, and then, of course, to play with Sean Payton in that offense, you got to be smart. There's a ton of plays, a ton of rules, all that, right? And he handled that like a true professional. Hey, it's unfortunate. It is. You know, football players, you know, for the most part, you know, you come from a line when people say crazy stuff to you. I think you and I were talking about this last week. Like, you know, there's a respect in what you say and what you don't say and what you do. And when you do say it, it's like, what? You got something to say, right? You know, there's a little bit of that way. And, you know, people mouth off in society, and football players can be macho guys a little bit, and they would never say some of these things to another human, and they hear it and they go, what the hell? You know, I've been there. You lose your cool a little bit. You do. You go, damn, you're really going to disrespect me out loud like that right here with me? Like, you know, that's a tough thing. But either way, he did own it. And he's been about as little of a distraction as you can be with a scenario like this. And it sounds like, you know, he went in, right? He guilty and was trying to get ahead of this thing from the start, right, Mike? I mean, he was negotiating, hey, I did this. Let's try to make this work for both sides that looks right the right way, and let's get back out and play football, and hopefully he can put this behind him.
We saw this coming, and we talked about it. When he resolved the criminal case, when he resolved the civil case, a point that we made was he can resolve his case with the NFL.
Right.
And he did. That's how this happened. There was no hearing before Judge Sue L. Robinson, no appeal process, no anything. He took full accountability and resolved the case with the league for a 3-game suspension, along with Colts cornerback Chris Lamons. He was involved in the incident as well. He accepted a 3-game suspension. It was negotiated. It was finalized. The one thing I'd love to know is what the NFL said they would try to get, because that's how a plea bargain works in any setting, whether it's civil, criminal, or administrative like this. Here's what we want. Here's what we'll settle for. And my guess is the NFL would have pushed for at least 6, maybe more, if this thing had gone to a full-blown hearing before Judge Sue L. Robinson.
Right.
And remember, the baseline for an assault under the personal conduct policy is a 6-game suspension. So he got half of what the baseline is, and they apply mitigating and aggravating factors, and maybe he would have ended up with 3 anyway, but they didn't go through any of that. He met with the commissioner last week. They worked it out. He accepted it. He didn't fight it. He didn't try to say I didn't do it. He didn't try to force the NFL to go through the process, and that's one of the reasons why I assume the NFL agreed to just stand down.
Yeah.
And give him a 3-game suspension instead of pushing for something longer than that.
Yeah, I would agree that that's the case. And, you know, again, like we talked about with Cincinnati, Hey, this is, a big part of their offense. This is not only a guy we know is really talented at running, but, I mean, he is awesome in the pass game, and they feature him in that part of their offense to where he can certainly help out the Derek Carrs of the world and that offense all encompassing to get Olave open downfield, to get Michael Thomas good looks down the field. He is a kind of the jack of all trades in that department here. So we'll see. The Saints are one of those teams we've talked about, kind of flying under the radar, that I think you and I both see some playoff caliber traits about their football team. And they're not going to have one of their best players the first 3 weeks, and it could end up putting them in a hole that they can't overcome.
Jamal Williams, Kendre Miller, Dwayne Washington are listed on the depth chart behind Alvin Kamara. They added Jamal Williams in the offseason after he had 18 touchdowns with the Lions, and the Lions did not re-sign him. So Jamal Williams likely to get some work right out of the gates, with Kamara missing week 1 against the Titans, week 2 at Carolina, week 3 at the Green Bay Packers, as he embarks on what, barring a restructuring of his deal after the season, likely will be his last year, Chris, with the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, I think there's a good chance. You're right. It's going to be some sort of restructure, and that's why they drafted this kid Kendre Miller from TCU. One of the guys he reminded me of, I think I said this to you last week or 2 weeks ago, he reminded me of kind of an Alvin Kamara coming out of TCU. And it was in in an offense that we know. You saw college football towards the end of the year. They threw the ball a lot. So I'll be interested to see how much he can get involved in the offense here early on. Split time with Jamal Williams, or is he, still learning to a point where they can't trust him early in the year? But yeah, at least they got Jamal Williams. But it could be thin behind that, depending on the development of Miller.
Looking at his contract this year, his base salary is down to $900,000. I assume that's because he did some sort of a restructuring. It wipes out the suspension wipes out any remaining guarantees in his contract, but not that matters at this point. I doubt there are many left. He had $4 million actually fully guaranteed as of last year for this year. That wipes out, but still they're going to keep him. I think they keep him this year. Next year, when his salary goes to $10.2 million, is when he either restructures or he's gone. And they're still the favorites in the NFC South at plus 120. But who knows? It's so wide open. 8-9 were the Buccaneers last year. The other 3 teams were 7-10. And the point we made, I believe, last week, because the Falcons finished technically 4th, despite having the same record as the Saints and the Panthers, they get the 4th place schedule. They pick a couple of easier games up than the others. That could be the difference at the end of the day if you're trying to figure out how this thing's going to shake out. The Falcons have an edge over the other teams.
Yeah, they do in that department, but at the same time, the Falcons, the Panthers, and the Bucs have one common question. What can we expect from the quarterback play, right? And I think that's why the Saints are where they are. One, hey, we see still a good defense. They got a pretty good O-line, but they got a quarterback that's at least been there, done that to give us confidence. I like Atlanta and all that, but yeah, we've talked about it. Desmond Ridder, he's certainly a question. Bryce Young, rookie, question. Baker Mayfield, Kyle Trask, yeah, it sounds like it's real, I was there around a bunch of Tampa people to tell you that they said Trask has been practicing really well as of late, right? So he's obviously got on the radar or closed the gap to a degree for that many people to say that to me over this weekend, right? So I think that's why the Saints are sitting in the so-called proverbial leader house, Mike, as wise people call it.
They'll have to hold that lead in the leader house the first 3 weeks without Kamara. Wide open division, the most wide open division in all of football, just part of the fun that will be the 2023 regular season. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.